Hello everyone. My name is Elise. Welcome to my channel. I hope you're all doing so good today. We are here to do part 2 of my Romantasy series, and that is doing all of my Romantasy reviews. So we are going to be reviewing all of the books that I read for this project last year, and I am very excited to get into these books because, I have thoughts. I have some thoughts. I completed 7 books for this project and I DNF'd a few more. I also DNF'd some of the ones that I ended up finishing, so we'll talk about that along the way as well. But I have my tea here today because I am tired. Do you see the bags under my eyes? Yes. Sometimes I just have bags under my eyes, but today they are actually communicating how I am feeling. So don't we just love it when life is in alignment like that? So I'm gonna drink some caffeine and let's get into these books. We are going to be going over the books in the order that I read them, at least the order that I think I read them. And just some general thoughts before we get into the specific reviews is that I really tried to do a mix of magic systems and tropes. That was sort of like the number one things I was thinking about when selecting some of what I was going to read. And then I also wanted to go for things that I thought I would generally like. Like I wasn't trying to go into these books to not like them and then talk badly about them. I wanted to pick ones that I thought I would enjoy. That was also a little bit of a guiding light. And then secondly, I think I talked about this in my essay, I wanted to pick at least one book that had been originally self-published because self-publishing is such a staple in the genre. And then I also wanted to pick at least one that was queer in some way. Those are some of the decisions I was kind of making when selecting the books that I was trying and reading. So let's start with the first book, which I actually think was a really good book to start with, and that was A Fate Inked in Blood by Danielle L. Jensen. This book is based on Norse mythology, and the magic system is blood magic. And it is one of the more violent books that I read on the list. So you get magic based on blood from the gods. This book I think was actually a really good starting place for me because it is extremely straightforward and it is extremely predictable. It's sort of what I thought Romantasy would be like going into it, which is maybe more aligned with just like other genre fiction. Maybe I'm comparing it to romance where like it's straightforward, you know what's going to happen, and this book definitely gives that. We have a linear plot. There's basically like one thing happening at all times and you can probably predict everything that's going to happen. I don't think it was poorly written. I think the writing was decent, but this is not one that I will be continuing in. I will tell you if I'm going to continue or not for all of these. This one I'm not going to be continuing in. It is a duology, and that is just mostly because it is so straightforward and predictable. It's sort of like boring in my opinion. I liked the romance. I thought our male lead was doing that like perfect romantasy male lead thing of being like extremely supportive of the heroine's dreams and goals, even if that comes at the expense of what he might want or be comfortable with. And overall, just kind of like an ooey gooey center of a guy. So that was fun. And the magic system I would say was like interesting enough, but again, so predictable. It was just like, girl, I just got here and I already know what's going to happen before you do. Like, come on. So this one, not continuing, but a good start because it was sort of what I imagined and like very easy to follow. I read this also while I was sick and needed something that was more straightforward. So that was actually really helpful and made me realize like, oh yeah, I should probably be picking books based on like how I'm feeling emotionally and what I'm up for. So that was A Fate Inked in Blood. Solid starting off place. Next up, we went to a very interesting book, and this is When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker. This was the book that I picked up because it was originally self-published, and so many people had been talking about it and saying that they loved it. It was getting a lot of buzz. It has since been traditionally published. This book is a chonker. It's like 700 pages. It's fucking massive. The magic system and tropes that I was going for in this is not just that it was self-published, but it has dragons. So I wanted to pick a book that had dragons in it. And it also has an assassin trope, which is fairly common in romantasy, and I would say just fantasy in general. So I wanted to make sure I read something in that trope. And this book, I think, is so juicy. This book was throwing a lot at the wall and was seeing what was sticking. And some, I think, it like had a little something special to it. It had that like little je ne sais quoi, that X factor. And this is the one far and away that I would most want to continue. The second book is not even out yet. It comes out this year. And I'll say now, this is the one that I most want to continue and will be continuing. Now, let me tell you a little bit more, because I wouldn't just take that at face value that everybody's gonna like this and that it is amazing. What I enjoyed about this is how unhinged and not mainstream this was. You can really tell that this was self-published originally. I mean, like an editor would never let someone get away with this. And I sort of love it for that. It had this like subversive vibe to it that it just had me like straight up laughing. So for example, our main character is so violent. She is so violent. This is the most violent one that I read by far. And she has so many violent thoughts where she's like, I'm gonna go stab this motherfucker. Like, I'm gonna go I can't wait to go slit this guy's throat. Like, I'm daydreaming about it. It was straight up crazy. And in the beginning, I was like, what the fuck is going on? But eventually, I started just like leaning into it for what it was. And it was so funny. It is so funny to have a female main character that's supposed to be really likable and normally is like morally pure to be like, I can't wait to poke this guy's eye out. Like, it was so funny once you lean into it. So that, I thought, just say less. I was here for that. But I think this book definitely needed a stronger hand editing wise. So I know I said it was self-published. I read the traditional published version. So it had an editor, and I do not think the editor did enough to make this book really sing and be all that it could be. This book has so much potential in my mind, and it just needed some stuff taken out because there's so much happening in this book, like so much happening, and it needed a little bit more direction. And also there is some POV shifting in the back half of the book that I don't think was seamlessly integrated. It felt like they did it because they had no other way of getting us the information. And to me, that just speaks to like a lack of a finishing touch to not find a way through that puzzle and tell it to us in a more cohesive way, because it did not fit, in my opinion, with the rest of the book. But again, I think there's so much about this to like. It is batshit crazy, and that is sort of why I liked it. But I think the relationship between the two main characters I loved. It's probably my favorite in any of these. We have elemental magic going on in here, if that's something that intrigues you. And this one did end up having fairies. It was sort of like fairies thrown in. I didn't go into this thinking it would be a fairy book, but it does have fairies thrown in with elemental magic. Not everybody in the world is magical, only some people are. So that is When the Moon Hatched. Next up, we read The Serpent and the Wings of Night. Is that it? By Carissa Broadbent. I think that's it. And ooh, this book. Okay, this one I picked up because I wanted a vampire book. This is about vampires who also get magic from the gods. So similar to A Fate Inked in Blood, but a different like creature. And this one I picked up also because it had a like trials or a game trope. So we have contestants that enter into a set of trials to like win something at the end. I think it's like you win like a wish or something at the end. I'm sorry if I'm not using the right terminology. It's something like a wish, like you get granted a wish, which is extremely powerful. We are following our two love interests who enter the trials, and they end up kind of like teaming up together to try and survive longer to the end, because you sort of need to make alliances in order to live. This book gets compared to The Hunger Games, and I'm sorry, but the Kajari could never compare to the Hunger Games. So don't even play that with me. This book, interestingly, I think might be the best written of any of the books, just on a sentence by sentence level. But this book I will not be continuing in this series. I had a great time reading this book, but ultimately this book had the worst sex scenes I may have ever read. Not even just romantasy, including romance. This had some of the worst sex scenes I've ever read. Like, so cringy. I cannot describe to you the amount of cringe that these had. The amount of time she said mound, like, girl, just call it what it is. Like, let's stop the madness. I know it might be hard to think of a bunch of different creative words to talk about genitals, but don't just keep saying mound. Like, it's not a mound. So that, no. And it just, like, there was no chemistry during the sex. So for that reason, it kind of gets a big ding against it. And secondly, girl, the ending, Carissa Broadbent, don't piss me off. Don't piss me off. Like, that ending, no. That immediately I was like, I'm not continuing. There's no way I'm continuing. I can't tell you what it is, but no, it's a no for me, dog. So that is The Serpent and the Wings of Night. Next up, we have Throne of the Fallen by Kerri Maniscalco. This is one that I actually DNF'd and then later came back to. This is another instance of, I came back to because, like, I think, like, emotionally and mentally, I was just, like, drained and burnt out, and I couldn't really handle reading anything that was, like, too serious or heavy. And I ended up going back to this because this is so silly, guys. So Throne of the Fallen is like Princes of Hell. So that was a different magic system that was interested in, like, this demons type of creature. And the other thing about this book that drew me to trying it is that it is companion novels, which is really popular in romance, to have a series that is just very loosely connected, where each book is sort of contained to its own love story and couple. So each book contains two different main characters. So in Throne of the Fallen, we're following one of the princes of hell. I think it's the Prince of Envy, and our female main character. Now, this book ends up having a ton of different magical creatures in it. So we have vampires, we have werewolves, we have fairies, and on and on and on. So there's a ton of magic shit in here. And it also has a trials trope. Our leads are both in a magical set of trials because they both have something that they need, but they don't know that each other is in the trial when they start. It's like invitation only, and our male lead ends up blackmailing our female lead into helping him. So this book is Bridgerton fan fiction. Argue with the wall. You cannot tell me that this is not Bridgerton fan fiction. There are direct quotes from Bridgerton in this book. Direct quotes multiple times. I don't understand how this isn't plagiarism. So that was the thing that initially pissed me off. I was like, okay, I'm just reading Bridgerton fan fiction. Like, love that for the girlies who want to read that. I don't want to read that. But then when I was like in my, anxious girl energy, I was like, okay, I'll pick it back up. And it ended up being fun. It is silly. You need to go into this thinking like it's something to like have a good fun time. And this book is the steamiest of any of the books that I read. And some of the ones I'm going to be talking about later are purported to be very steamy. This is the steamiest book that I read. And this one, I also don't think I'm going to be continuing, with a slight caveat. If I ever feel like I'm in a place where I want like a lighter, just fun read again, I might pick up the next one. But overall, it wasn't one that I absolutely loved. I actually think this book would have been a lot better if it went even lighter. Like, some of the heaviness I think just wasn't believable in this book. And if it just leaned into being a little bit more like silly and fun and campy, I would have liked it more. So that is Throne of the Fallen. Next up, we're starting to get into dangerous territory. And I'm going to say that in advance because we're going to talk about The Night and the Moth by Rachel Gillig. Y'all, the people who are saying they like this book, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? I wish I would have DNF'd this book. I wish I could get those hours of my life back. I cannot. I finished this book because I was doing a buddy read with a friend, and it is not good. I think this is the one where I'm going to say this is objectively, it's not good. It's not a good book. This book I tried out because it's like knights. It has this medieval vibe. And this one has the trope of an orphan being conscripted into magical service. And that is also a popular trope in fantasy. So I wanted to read something that had that. And the magic system in this is like magical objects that imbue the beholder of the object with a magical ability. And one of those magical objects, maybe the main one, is a spring that our main character is like a seer, and so you basically like drown yourself in the spring and it allows you to have visions or like prophecies. So that's pretty bleak already. To me, this book is very flat, very surface level. It was also predictable and cheesy, and the world building just was not good. The world building was not good. We traveled to like 4 different realms, I think, and you get one scene depicting each realm. One scene. This book is short for Romantasy. Again, one of the few times I would say like this needed to be way longer. Like the settings needed to be way more fleshed out. It felt so stereotypical to me in that regard because we got one scene at each place. It just like, yeah, to me, it was like, where's the depth? There's like no depth to this story. I will say the one thing is like, I think the romance was fine. I have no qualms about the romance. They seemed believable to me, that they were compatible with each other. So that was fine. But everything else, I just think was so surface level. And I don't understand what people see in this book. So if you really love this book, you let me know down below what you liked about it, because this one I do not get. Clearly will not be continuing. So let's move on to the next one. The next one is Swordcatcher by Cassandra Clare. This one I wanted to read, one, because of the Cassandra Clare of it all. I think she's a real OG author in the romantasy space. She wrote a lot of YA romantasy that was very popular, and this is her adult romantasy. And then this one I also wanted to pick up because of the bisexual representation. So I tried picking up some other queer ones. We're gonna get to those when we get into the DNFs. So this one is bisexual. It does have bisexual rep with a caveat. I'm gonna talk about that later. But yeah, this is part of one of the ones I picked up to try and pick up a queer romantasy. Also has an orphan being conscripted into service. And this one has a dual POV. So we are following a female main character and a male main character. Notice that I'm not saying love interest. Notice that I'm not saying it. So let's get into it. This book is not romantasy. This book is not romantasy. There's no romance. I could see maybe it being labeled as romantasy because in subsequent books, there will be romance. I had more romance in the first grade than any of the characters in this book. I don't think this is a spoiler because everyone talks about this, but you get a single kiss in this book. A single kiss. This book is like 700 pages, and you don't even know if those are the love interests. No idea, because there's so many little potential romances that there could be. And this is one of those books where like you don't know who the love interests are going into the book, because you're not sure if the 2 POVs that you're following are going to have a love interest with each other or with other people. If it's other people, you don't know who the other people are going to be. So the fact that I can't tell you who the love interests are, nor can I really tell you the magic system. The magic system is not well explained in this. So again, I think they're like edging you for the other books so you can figure out what's going on. But this is one that I will not be continuing. Now, I do want to say this book is well written. I think this book is absolutely well written. It is a good fantasy, with the caveat that, again, this book needed stronger editing for me. It is way too descriptive. way too descriptive. There are entire paragraphs, sometimes entire pages, that I would be reading it and be like, that whole page could go. That whole page was irrelevant. You're giving me so many details about a scene at this point that I can't remember all of it. I will never remember all of that. It's just making it hard for me to remember the important details because there's so much superfluous description. So that I think really needed to go. But overall, the book is well written, like great sentences. The prose flows really nicely. I get why people like this. This is one of the more popular ones I think that I read. But for me, way too overly descriptive, and it's not romantasy. It's just a fantasy book that has potential to maybe lead to fantasy down the road. So will not be continuing. But this one, I will admit, it's more like this one is not to my personal taste. I think it's a good book. It's just not to my personal taste. And the last book that I finished for this project is Quicksilver by Hart. I think it's Hart. This one I would say is sort of like tied with When the Moon Hatched as the two most popular ones that I read. And this one I wanted to pick up because I wanted a like strictly fairy novel. Fairies are like maybe the most common magical creature that shows up in Romantasy. And I still hadn't read one that was like a very traditional like fairy based one. There happened to be fairies in a couple of the other ones that I read, but I wanted like a fairy based one. So I picked up Quicksilver because I had tried a couple others and they weren't working for me. And this is like much more traditional trickster fae, and this one had a fated mates trope. The magic system was kind of like whatever you could think of. Like fairies are just magical creatures and they can kind of do a lot of different things with magic, plus they're also magical objects, so similar to the Knight and the Moth in that regard. And there are people who can manipulate elements like Quicksilver, which is a metal element that has the ability to help you travel between realms. So this one I would say is fairly well written. I would put it in the middle of the pack in terms of writing. And another thing that this book did really well is I think it has well fleshed out secondary characters. Secondary characters are so important to big fantasy books like this, and this book had some of the best ones of any of the books that I've read. I think the romance was believable. I thought the steam was written well. There was nothing cringy about it. People say this is one of the steamier ones, and I thought this was like medium steam compared to the other things that I've read. But this is another one where I did not like the ending. The ending felt way too convenient as a way to just like ramp up the plot at the end and leave you on a cliffhanger. And it was kind of out of nowhere. Like I don't think the author earned that ending, like baked it into the rest of the story enough. And I also think the ending was to try and fill a plot hole that was going to become an issue if the author didn't do something. I don't want to say what it is, but there's that. So this one is interesting. If you've been keeping track so far of the 7 that I finished, which is the last one, there's only one that I for sure want to continue in, and that is When the Moon Hatched. But I would say Quicksilver is probably the other one that I'm considering continuing in, and just seeing like how it bridges the gap from that ending into the next book. And really the main thing that's pulling it through is that ensemble cast, is the secondary characters. I think they're the strongest of any that I've read. So we made it to the end of all the books that I read. Let's talk about my DNFs. I'm going to try and do this more quickly because this video is already really long. And there's only a couple of them. I will say, so if I go back, the ones that I did actually DNF and then I came back to is I did end up DNFing Throne of the Fallen, came back to it and finished it. I did end up DNFing Swordcatcher, ended up finishing it. I probably shouldn't have finished that one. I didn't end up enjoying it and I won't continue, but I do think it's well written. And I almost DNF'd The Knight and the Moth. I think I said to the person I was buddy reading with that I was going to DNF it, and then I ended up just pushing through because I had like 100 pages left and it was a buddy read. So those 3 I all like DNF'd at some point and then came back and finished them, partially because I was like, I can't keep DNFing all these books. Like I need to be able to make the project in the first place. At least in the Throne of the Fallen's case, like it ended up being something that I enjoyed more as I continued. The books that I just straight DNF'd and I did not come back to, The first one is Phantasma by Kaylie Smith. This one I wanted to pick up because it has a witch element, and I didn't read anything with witches. It also has a like trial or games trope, and I DNF'd this just because to me it read YA. This was YA. No matter how explicit it gets in the end, this was YA. The main character read like a teenager. I think maybe she was supposed to be 21, but she was like so naive for a 21-year-old. It was not believable in my opinion at all. And it also was starting out as like way too straightforward, and I was like, okay, I'm 50 pages in and I feel like I know generally what's going to happen. So I DNF'd that one. I don't think that one is for me. And then another one that I DNF'd was Faebound by Saara L. Arifi. Now this one I really wanted to pick up because it's sapphic. So this was going to be my queer one and my fairy one. I wasn't ever intending to pick up Quicksilver, but this one was just way too war-based. It was so war. Like it reminded me of that clip in Hunger Games where it's like war, terrible war. And I was like, this is not what I'm trying to vibe with right now. So sadly, the sapphic one didn't end up working for me for that reason. So those are the ones that I quickly DNF'd. So that is my journey with all the Romantasy books that I have read last year. I overall had a really good time. I know I'm not continuing a lot of these, but I still thoroughly enjoyed my time with the first book. Most of them, I don't have regrets for reading them. And I will definitely continue reading in the genre. I probably won't read that many in a year. That was kind of like pushing it a little bit for me, but I will definitely pick up some this year and I'm happy to continue. So please let me know if you have any recommendations for me based on my thoughts about these books. I would absolutely love to hear those down below. I still feel like I'm a newbie to the genre, so I don't know about all of them yet. And please let me know your thoughts on any of the books that I talked about here today, or just your thoughts on the genre as a whole. I'd love to have a conversation with you. So we'll leave it there for today. Thank you for watching and going on this Romantasy journey with me, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye.